today the UK government is hosting a general of the Israeli army instead of arresting him for war crimes. They're hosting him. That's why we're here outside the Foreign Office.
We're having a terrible time in our country while our government bends over backwards to help out a genocidal state who will do anything because they can, and they're getting away with it. So we need to make a stand here and show that people like this shouldn't be welcomed on our shores.
My heart is completely broken. I'm full of rage. I am in complete disbelief that the British government are continuing to arm, befriend, train a terrorist state while they are committing a complete massacre after massacre of Palestinian people.
Daily, we are all faced with savagery, barbarism beyond our capacity to absorb. We see an army drunk on power and impunity, destroying everything that makes life bearable. Homes, schools, mosques, universities, hospitals, sewage plants, agricultural land. Children, babies, mothers, fathers, old people, disabled, everyone. Frightened, defenseless civilians are sent to so-called safe zones and bombed on the way. They are bombed in their flimsy shelters and starved of the necessities of life. They are told there is food, but if they try to access it, they are mercilessly mown down. What sort of fiends can act in this way without any guilt or empathy?
They call it the free world, but when you're shackled behind your desk, behind your mortgage, unable to stand up and say any word against this rotten government, you are not free. When any of these billions speaks up against a small entity called Zionism and you get imprisoned, we are not free. The Palestinians in the West Bank, in Gaza, in 1948, everywhere, we were born with one message. We are born free, and no one has the right to enslave us. This is bestowed upon us from birth, from my mom, from my grandmother. So I have been free for 52 years. Welcome to the freedom that cost a lot. It's costing us, up to now, I would estimate about 500,000 martyrs, 500,000 children, women, men, brothers, sisters have been slaughtered in Gaza and in the West Bank. That's the price of freedom. We are paying the price of freedom in Palestine for everyone.
I'm a consultant neurologist. I'm a Cambridge-educated consultant neurologist. I have a PhD from Imperial College. But guess what? I'm so dangerous that I was arrested under Section 12 of the Terrorism Act approximately a month ago. As I returned to the UK to basically attend my hearing. That arrest was for alleged support of proscribed terrorist organizations. Now, I know there are police officers filming, and I can assure them that everything I say is always legal and it's lawful and it's perfectly legitimate. When I was arrested and I was interviewed, I was rather surprised about how pathetic it was. You think they could have done better for my tweets? They showed me reposts from suppressed news. and said, that's a terrible video, isn't it? Well, I've seen many terrible videos coming out of Palestine of children's heads being blown off, children's limbs being blown off, and entire buildings being decimated. 80–90% of the civilian infrastructure has been completely destroyed. And it's outrageous that this country, the UK, which had a facade that it upheld international law, actually violates international law. We have rulings from the International Court of Justice that there's a genocide ongoing in Palestine, completely ignored by the British government, or the British regime rather. Arrest warrants out for Gallant and Netanyahu, again ignored, and the actual outrage that they will host the head of the Israeli Air Force, the very Air Force that has destroyed 80–90% of civilian infrastructure, targeted every hospital in Gaza, targeted every school, every university. People can look from the FCDO and say they're not part of it. You work for this ghastly organization, and that applies to everyone. It applies to everyone. You cannot turn around and say you simply earn a salary, and it's got nothing to do with you. You can all walk out. Everyone has a choice to speak up.
If I were to ask you to cheer, if you know what the Palestinian principles of liberation, which are called the Thawabit, there's 5 of them, if you know them and you could say them off by heart, can you give me a cheer? Okay, that's fine. Woo! Woo, because it's okay to not know. It's okay to not know, and that's what we should be doing as a movement. That's where we need to be educating. That's how we move the conversation along, and that's how we actually represent the Palestinian people. The Thawabit were finalized in the 1960s by the Palestinians, and they were taken from the National Charter, and they were passed unequivocally, and not a single faction in Palestine opposed them. And they are the non-negotiables, the red lines, our constants. Okay, and so if we want to stand and say I'm pro-Palestine, we need to know what the non-negotiables of Palestinian liberation are. And they are, Palestine is Arab from the river to the sea, and Al-Quds, Jerusalem, is its capital. Yes! Number 2, the Palestinian people reject normalization. What is normalization? We don't recognize the terrorist entity. It does not exist. It sits on top of Palestine and it must be dismantled. Number 3, the Palestinian people who are fighting for liberation, including armed struggle, as per international law, right, are heroes, every single one of them. We are proud of our armed resistance, and in Islam we call that jihad. That's an honor. That's how you defend your people. Okay. And number 4 is one where people might not like to hear, because we're always told, oh, what's going to happen to the Israelis? Yeah? If you have a Palestinian state, I don't care, firstly, right? Because what I care about is to stop a Holocaust, okay? If I say I don't care, I'm not them, we're not them. We don't wish harm on anyone. We want to stop harm, their existence. You can only be an Israeli, it's a genocidal identity. You can only be Israeli because a Palestinian has lost their lives, homes, and have been kicked out, and do not have their basic human rights. So for you to take that identity of Israeli in the first place is outrageous. So when they ask you what will happen to Israelis, you tell them Israelis shouldn't want to be Israelis, because them being Israelis is why a Holocaust is happening. Those are the main Palestinian principles of liberation. Is there another one? Can anyone think of one? There we go. Well, there's how many Palestinians are in Palestine? Okay, for me, Palestine is in the entirety of the map. Yeah, Israel does not exist, and I can say that legally, and I have my opinion. Palestinians are, behind the 440-mile wall in the West Bank. Why does that exist? Yeah, so you have about 3 to 4 million there, and then you have it used to be 2.5, probably about 1.8 million Palestinians in Gaza now. And then you've got 7 million Palestinians across the world. 1 in 3 refugees in the world is Palestinian, which I like to say to our right wing, who are overtaken by Zionism, by Jewish supremacy, because they're infiltrated. Actually, if you're a patriot, if you're patriotic to Britain, then you would want it to be Britain first, not Israel first. And okay? If you're Britain first, then you wouldn't want your taxes to go and bomb children. You'd want them to go to the NHS. You'd want them to go to your children. And also, you wouldn't want your doctors to be suspended for stopping a Holocaust, wanting to stop a Holocaust. Yeah? Why are we doing that? Because Wes Streeting took £70,000 from the Israel lobby. And so when he says we have a majority in Parliament, when he's speaking to the Board of Deputies of British Jews, who's we? Who is we? We is not the British public. So you're telling the Israeli lobbies that we have a majority in Parliament to pass legislation. Where are the Britain First people here? Because that is at the expense of every British citizen. Yeah? Short of killing the British public, the next worst thing you can do is take their doctors away. And if the doctors are the ones saying, don't blow kids' brains out, why are we then not allowed to care for the British public? That's what we should be saying. So those are the basic things that we all kind of need to move the conversation along. Anti-Zionism is anti-Israel. Israel should not exist, and that is the bare minimum. Anything less than is a betrayal to the Palestinian people. And some people say, oh, but we need a ceasefire. Yeah, at the same time, if I'm not going to call for the total liberation, for the principles that were decided upon before I was born, then whilst the Palestinians are being mass murdered, when will I call for them? When? Yeah? That's it. We need to move the conversation along. We can't have any of this two-state BS. We need to stop saying Zionism, because then we can't call out the perpetrators who are Jewish supremacists, because where did they come from? It was Jewish immigrants who came along and they created terrorist groups and they killed the Brits first. Yeah? So the biggest terrorist attack against Brits in history was by Jewish terrorists in Palestine. It's the King David Hotel bombing, which is celebrated every year. They have a plaque for it. Netanyahu went to see the reveal of the plaque, and the British government said, that's not okay, don't do that. But that's not okay. But because they're scared, because they were driven out of Palestine because of Jewish terrorism. I can say Jewish terrorism, we can say Jewish supremacy. These things shouldn't exist. There should be no terrorism of anyone, no supremacy of anyone. We don't want a two-state. We need to demand this from anyone who's setting up parties, who's going to speak for us in Parliament. You don't get to form a party and get recognition, get money from the blood of our martyrs, the blood of our heroic resistance fighters, right? And not call for the basic Palestinian principles of liberation. We need to all demand that. Free, free!